Rolling.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Spinner Rack. I'm here with the boys, Cal and Petey, and today we're talking about the Black Widow, the history of the Black Widow. That's right, Natasha Romanoff. So once again, the boys are here. Cal and Petey say, what's rocking to the peeps?
What up?
Ready to rock.
Always remember to give us a thumbs up, comment, and like on our video. So, hey, I'm going to pass it on to Petey so he can give us a little background on the Black Widow, and we'll jump into the conversation from there. Petey, go selector.
Well, we're gonna talk a little about the Black Widow, Natasha Romanoff. She's a fan favorite, but
Yes, she is.
she hasn't really had a title of her own throughout the years. She only recently at Marvel got like a decent run on her own title. So some nice stuff that's going on now. But she was very, success in the movies and always a character that sort of found its way to coming back at Marvel and finding its way to everyone's history. So we're gonna go through a little of her history, right? So we got this nice picture of her in the movies, and let's go to. Let's see. We're going to in my scans. We got our Iron Man Tales of Suspense 53, where she literally looks like a widow. Right? So this is our intro to her, and she looks pretty powerful in here. We've never seen her do anything like this. But at the same time, in this story, we have it, the plot is by Stan Lee, and the script is by someone we haven't heard of before. So the creation of her character has been possibly just given to Stan Lee, Kirby, and Don Heck. But we have this and Karak guy that we don't know when Stan was trying out people to write scripts for the stories. But ultimately, she's sort of an arms dealer. In this story, she kind of steals something that Tony Stark has created and using it against him. And she slowly becomes a thorn in Tony Stark's side. So she shows up there, and then of course the next time she shows up, she brings a cool operative, Hawkeye. So
wow, they go back that far, huh?
Yeah, so she brought him up there, and this was kind of the guy she had, this mercenary type guy who didn't really kill anybody, but he's really a tough guy that puts Iron Man through some chutes and ladders. But she has Clinton Barton wrapped around her finger, right? So of course he comes back a couple times in Iron Man, but then we know he joins, and seeing Black Widow almost killed makes him and compels him to join the Avengers. And soon after she joins, I should have found that issue. There is an issue in one of my Gitcore scans where you see her as a villain on the cover, but she becomes a background character in the Avengers. She's kind of, what I have here, she shows up, but then when Roy Thomas is writing her, he decided to make her an actual widow, that that her husband has died, but has he? And we find out her husband was actually the Red Guardian. But she's like, at this point, the Avengers have like 3 female characters, but the Black Widow is really a background character. And her character kind of gets thrown into a background plot that Nick Fury, Hawkeye wants her to join the Avengers. Hank Pym is like, no, I don't think so. She attacked us with, I think it's some group of villains. It's like, I don't think she should join. And she kind of worked with Cap for a little while, so they're kind of, kind of liking her. But at the same time, Nick Fury comes in, and this is the first time, this is a little before this issue, Nick Fury says, I got a special mission for you. And that special mission leads us to meeting the Red Guardian, who's actually her husband. Now, the movie, I think, might have this a little different. I think they might.
Very different.
So, but it's an interesting thing where her character's not only a widow by name, but because her costume changed a little bit, but she's actually she actually was thought herself as a widow, but we find out her husband was alive. But then I think a little.
Still, Peter, you don't mean to interrupt, but she was still trained by the Russians, right, to be a spy.
She was more a spy. She didn't really do too much fighting at this period. I think the history that you're going to get into is going to get into more of that, but she's more an arms, dealer and stealer, like taking things from Tony Stark, and then she slowly becomes the girlfriend in the background. And then when Nick Fury,
whose girlfriend? Hawkeye's?
yeah, Hawkeye's girlfriend, where it's like, and then she has an abrupt breakup with Hawkeye. She has a very abrupt breakup where she says that she never loves Hawkeye after this story goes and the Red Guardian's gone. And then she appears in Spider-Man.
And that's the look.
And that's where we get the sort of the M appeal from the Avengers, and/or it could be considered, because we're here, we have our old costume in the scans, and we have her here. She broke up with she broke up with Hawkeye, and we have this old outfit that she has where she lost the sort of veil and having the veil within the rest of the costume. But she decides, you know what? I'm going to put on this cooler thing. And I'm going to get some things. I'm going to check out the Spider-Man character and figure out what he does. And she gets her a couple of things, a little bit like Emma Peel, but a little more like with the color, like Catwoman from the Batman series.
A little more row, row.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that, especially done by John Romita, one of the best babe artists out there. And as I'm going to go to a different thing after that, but Cal, can you say some words on this period or anything you want to say about our history?
Oh, I was surprised. I think you did a really concise job over there. I love the images that you took the time to put together. When we first meet her, yes, she's a spy. She steals munitions. She's looking to steal plans, and she's really not that big in terms of an Iron Man villain. She's more like the catalyst, and like, I'm going to throw this at him. And then, of course, she's one of those villains, almost like a Skeletor, where at the very end, I can run away, escape in the truck, and Iron Man's chasing after. Oh, why can't I ever catch her? Because if you catch her, then she can't come back and do something in the next episode. So you would have those type of things. But and then at some point she's given that costume, the one that we saw earlier. So she's more of a costume. So she has, like, as she says, she's no longer just Madame Natasha, the spy who with the moniker the Black Widow. She's the actual costume Black Widow. That sort of thing. And then it was the same situation for her, like you saw with Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch, where they looked and they say, hey, these characters, pretty popular. We can just kind of bleed them over to the Avengers. We need people on the team. Let's use these people right over here. So we get them on, and it works. The only the hardest thing is that you get the Red Guardian coming in, and that upsets. Well, the problem, you bring the Red Guardian, it actually makes her a lot older than I thought she was. Because by the time you get there, with the Red Guardian, you're like, how old is she? He's like 50, 40 or such? Because, she was married, and this dude, that starts to throw everything off. And then you get to her by the 70s. By the 70s, she still looks like what? At the best, she's early 30s. So the time thing starts to play with her, because they wanted to backdate it that she was like active during World War II. And when we were first introduced to her as a character, she's just a regular human being. She's, got some, well, first, she's not even like, fighter or anything. She's a spy. And, she's a femme fatale. And that moved for her being a costume adventuress. She's had training and ballerina and all this other type of stuff. By the time we see her here in Spider-Man, she's somebody who can actually sneak up on Spidey and, rope him up and break through boards with just a crack of her hand and so on and so forth. And then we get even further down the line when she's actually going to be a recipient of a version of the super soldier serum, which was a shock to me, because I read all of this stuff, and I remember going back like, did I miss something? Where did this happen? It happened in the wonderful world of retcon. It happened in that wonderful world of retcon, because I was like, when did she take that serum? Because I was looking through these original issues, and I'm like, how did I miss that? And I'm like, I didn't miss anything. They just added that in. But up to this point, the super soldier serum I never agreed with. But up to this point, you really get to see a nice trajectory of how developed this character was and how readily embraced this character was by readership, because we take it for granted, but this is some pretty dramatic change that the character has from where she starts to where she is by the time we see her over in the 70s. And this is just a jump before she's going to become Daredevil's partner.
Yes.
In the Daredevil series, which is actually her longest. That's up to that point, that's her longest partnership with any superhero. The title was even renamed Daredevil and the Black Widow for a period of time. Daredevil kind of turned her down and said, no, we've got no relationship. he wanted to hook up with some other chick, which I always thought was the dumbest thing possible. I was like, why in the world? What's wrong with her? You know, I don't understand. He's like, you want this woman? What's wrong with her? And then of course, what's the reason why he has to get rid of her? Somebody else is like, no, I want her in this book. I want her in this book, so she's got to go. That's how that worked out.
She didn't have her own books for a long time. It's usually she's been in others' books. Am I correct? When did she have her?
She had there's one series that she had, which I'm going to show you right now. It was she had an 8-issue stint in Amazing Adventures.
Yeah, with the Inhumans as a backup feature.
Let me just show you guys that, and this is where you really get some of the action and stuff like that, taking from what happened in that Spider-Man series, and we get to see her friend, was it Alexi, that somehow shows up all the time. We don't know if they're in a relationship or not, but he's kind of always there. But it's like especially the Gene Colan sort of art, like this, and there's some really nice stuff. She's a total babe in this whole series. So I think my brother was buying this from the Neil Adams Inhumans issues, and I'm like saying, oh, look at this Black Widow stuff. Because she's always getting dressed up and she's always kicking behind. It's mostly, like something like, not really, no, Emma Peel did a lot more than just kicks, but it's like flips and kicks and whatnot and swinging around. So it's cool stuff. Now, the only other thing I wanted of this period where you can see it's one of these characters that the pros are kind of like, hey, we like this character. We like this character a lot. So you also have, while it was going on, she shows up in the Champions. Now in the Champions, all the other covers, she's the girl in the series. She's clearly the girl. This is one cover where you don't really see her as the girl. But as it went along, Bob Mantlo and John Byrne, when they had their short stint on the tail end of it, they kind of pushed for Natasha to become the leader of the team. When you can see Hercules is the headshot. So it was kind of thought of as his thing, where the pros are like, nah, you know what? She could probably, this is one of the first female-led teams, even though it died out pretty quickly. And another thing that was short-lived, but we didn't get to see it in the 70s, but in the 80s, she finally got the real treatment where you get to see her taking action. It was the 70s thing that George Perez did, but it was something that was done later in Marvel Fanfare in the 80s, where we got this lost story that they couldn't find a place to put. And they said, hey, Perez is hot as, he's hot as fire. And of course, he's still, just like Bernie, like he's still in love with the Widow. So they put her in this series where she's kicking, she's working with who's that, Nick Fury, and she's kicking behind. So this one is another 4-issue, even though this 4 issues thing kind of fell under the issue of the Justice League Avengers, where Perez was kind of upset that died. So he didn't do the last cover because he was like, I'm exclusive, I'm not working with Marvel. But it's cool seeing him, revisit the covers while his older art is the classic art that made him famous in the 70s.
The art is great as heck, man.
Yeah, Marvel Fanfare as a series, I think, is very, very underrated because you had some great cover art from guys like Perez, Joe Chiodo, who did these awesome covers for Sheena? Oh, no, Shanna the She-Devil. Really nice covers and just a great story. One of the characters in the storyline is capped for the movie as well. That's the Iron Maiden. But I don't know what they're doing with the movie because it seems like a lot of these, Red Guardian's like, oh, that's my pop, huh? And then, of course, I'm the comic book guy here, so I'm going to be like, what? You married your father? That's what you do in Russia? It's just wild for me because you're like, hey, what the hell happened? But very great, really great series. The Champions, I always thought was a bit of an oddity because what do you have? You have 2 Avengers, 2 X-Men, and you're like, let's throw the Ghost Rider here. So it's pretty much, okay, let's have some of the popular stuff and, that's not working individually and see if we can actually, bring those together. Because they tried to do stuff for Hercules, but it never worked in Marvel because Thor was the guy. So it became like, how do we do this? Because we've already set up Thor to be the godly guy with everything. And then Herc is supposed to be like his pal who doesn't really give a damn about anything. He just wants to drink and chase chicks. So how do we, it never worked. They did try to do stuff with him. They gave him a solo shot here and there. And, the Champion stuff didn't really work. And then same thing, Black Widow never had her own, never had like a real solo series. Even when she was with the Amazing Adventures, she's sharing it with the Inhumans. Ghost Rider, Ghost Rider was a fan favorite book that just wasn't strong enough to go, the long term on its own, but it's had several series. And then of course, hey, throw an X on it because X-Men were happy. The X-Men are hot. Not these two guys, but let's put some X-Men on this. I always found that interesting. That was just a real interesting mashup for a team. It's almost like, hey, let's just make a team book and let's see how the hell it goes. And we saw exactly how it went. So she gets buzzed, but I'm trying to remember where we are again. So she's up to the point of what? Marvel Fanfare. Yes. And we still haven't gotten to the retcon yet. She's still a regular person. There's no super soldier serum. Okay. So here, I'm still good. And then what's now?
Well, there's
the next thing I know in trajectory is because she's going to reappear in Daredevil and they're going to change her outfit. So she will no longer be in the sexy cat suit. Instead, Frank Miller wanted her to be, I guess, wanted like a more return to her spy roots in terms of her outfit. So he gave it a collar and put it.
Complaining about the hair? You're going to complain about the hair, aren't you? The haircut.
I wasn't going to complain about the hair. I was just looking at, I didn't have too much of an issue with the costume change. I didn't think it was that big of a deal. He gave her just a plunging, more of a plunging neckline and a collar. And I was like, okay, I didn't see any, still, like dark gray, black, that type of stuff. But a lot of guys just hated it. They, they hated they hated that costume for whatever reason. The hair, hey, what can I say? You got hair like that, you don't cut it.
That was Miller. Probably he wanted to differentiate her from Elektra.
Well, because they both had red hair. That might be a good point.
Well, they both had long hair. Elektra's hair is black.
Yeah.
But wait a minute. Well,
red
that's the other thing. When we first start with the Black Widow, she has black hair. Then at some point it becomes red.
So here's her. This is the black and white of it.
I didn't like that costume.
You don't like this one? I bought this one off the stand, so I was just happy to see the Widow back. And I was just like, wow, as a kid, I was just like, oh, she's back, great. And I didn't really understand the credits.
This is Frank Miller before he drew women better. No, because look at that face. That's Bucky.
Well, this is more Klaus Janson. He was just doing layouts. You can see this is probably not that much different, but this is where Klaus is taking up a little more of the drawing. But that's not to say that you're not right about his females. But this is that period. There was one other thing. I mean, she does show up in this costume in Iron Man, where there's an Iron Man story where one of her last missions kind of come up. And Iron Man helps him, but there's a big surprise in it. But I wanted to really get to this on the first time she's really an actual member of the Avengers. And she's a part of the members only Avengers. And look at how little respect she gets on the team and how much respect the Black Knight gets, who doesn't really look like the Black Knight anymore. His energy sword is in front of her face.
I guess it's the whole sword is bigger.
Just look at the corner box. She's not even there.
It's crazy.
Eric, who's there? Eric Masterson, Thor, White Vision, Hercules is cool, Black Knight is cool, and Crystal. These three of these guys aren't even really Avengers at the end of the day. And she couldn't even get up there. No respect at all.
So
what's with the jackets, man? Everybody had members only. When you put it on, something happens to you. Good grief.
Hey, don't knock the ties, bro. Okay, don't knock the ties.
You still got yours.
That's
got yours, huh?
The 90s.
Everybody was wearing it. What are you talking about? Everybody
in the 80s. This is the 90s.
Everybody was wearing it, bro.
Members only in the 90s.
I just say everybody had a member jacket, whether it was popular or not. You had it in the back in your closet somewhere.
The Black Knight has on a high-waisted leather jacket, and his name is the Black Knight. The knights do not wear.
Here we go.
Jackets. Okay.
Well,
you have a cape, maybe. You have a cape and a tunic and some chainmail, sure, but not a jacket. Look at Hercules. Hercules is like, hey, you may try to bitch me out by making me shave, but I'm not putting that jacket on. Okay? And they're like, Herc, you want to put on some more clothing? He's like, are you kidding?
Wait. Hercules
I'm not
wearing
hiding this.
studs. What are you talking about? He's wearing studs, like he's gonna go
He's
to
always had that
strip clubs. I know, but I'm saying he looks as though he's going to I mean, he's wearing underwear out there, matching his studs and stuff like that. What are you talking about?
Are you kidding me? It's Hercules. You lucky he has any clothes on at all. He's probably saying, why should I wear clothing? You know, I'm denying people to look at this. You know, I'm denying you the gift of me. He's like, you've seen all these statues of me. You know, I'm not afraid to put it all out there. You know what I got?
But it's kind of interesting that you have Thor seems to be more of the Hercules mode nowadays, you know, than Hercules is now. I mean, we don't even see Hercules, you know, the character.
Yeah, it would be very similar. I think it's
So that's why you can have him.
I think no, I think when more so when Roger Stern was kind of writing it, he kind of figured like because he had Namor and Hercules kind of become friends and slash rivals, and it was an interesting way to write. It was one of the first times you really started to see like Hercules really finding his sort of voice, but then of course he got, you know, we're getting away from Natasha, who's actually a member, but even though she's not in the corner, she's not in that corner box. But then the next thing, which I don't have a picture of, and I didn't necessarily read it that much, is the Ultimates, where she's very much a part of that series.
Oh God,
That's,
awful.
that's where we really know it. Once it started up, because it's all connected to you know, to Nick Fury, like she's a part of the team, and then she became inseparable with the team after that point. So
here's a question: has she been attached to Shield all this time? Because I mean, Daredevil, wasn't she attached to Shield with Daredevil? Wasn't she attached
with the Avengers early on? The only this that fanfare story, she's attached to Nick Fury, and then the Avengers story with the Red Guardian. But they don't. It's not like they've had this lifelong thing. He just says, "Hey, you going good in the Avengers? Why don't you just come help me out?" Like that's basically it. And she can't tell the Avengers. He's like Hawkeye's like, "We're bringing her in. I don't care what anybody says." And she's like, "No, Hawkeye, I can't do it." And he's like, "What the hell?" And then they're like, "See." Hank Pym was like, "See, I knew she was a turncoat. I knew she was like he didn't say those words, but it's like he's against her." And then of course you find out she says, "Oh, I couldn't tell." That, you know, the Marvel type of drama where she doesn't tell him she's obviously Russian, so they think, oh, she got some other planet. You find out even she doesn't know when she finds out. Oh my gosh, they said, "Was it Ivan?" They said, "My husband, he's alive, but not for long."
Yeah, he was up for all of one issue because these guys were like, we can't keep this going.
The Ultimates were another world, I believe, right? They were the Avengers.
Yeah.
You know, so,
yeah, that was an alternate. That was an awful alternate universe. Just awful.
Yeah, but that was Hickman. Didn't he do well with that one?
No, that's that was
Hitch.
Hitch, yeah, Hitch and Miller, the other Miller, Mark Miller.
Okay, cool.
So that would be from that point. I know you want to get to the whole history that we have now, Mars. So please give it to us.
Are we talking about the latest comics that she's in now? We're talking about where
anything.
Yeah, I mean, so right now we have her in there was a limited series, 5 issues, where you know she loses her memory, and she's in San Francisco and she has a child. I don't want to go mess up the story for anybody, but she has a child. And she thinks that's the way it should be, not realizing that people have put in all her enemies are basically all her superhero villain enemies have gotten together to try to make her suffer, and ended up killing her in the end, trying to kill her at the end. At the same time, Yelena Belova, as well as Hawkeye and Winter Soldier, try to go out and help her out. But the success of that, which is interesting, and I'm not sure if it's a success of that or because it's a tie-in to the Black Widow movie. I think those comics, those 5 limited issues, were supposed to come out around the same time Black Widow was supposed to be. But the success, it seems, now they've just had issue number 6, and no one thought there was going to be of course, if you read the previews, you knew something was coming up. But they had an issue number 6, which giving her a series. No longer is it limited. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And, you know, there was a run this week on the comics for that. You know, it's sold out everywhere, all the covers. I don't know if Cal will know anything about that.
No, I don't.
Yeah, so there was a big run on all those. So there's no, now because no one expected it. It's weird, considered a number 6 episode issue. But I mean, here we go back to what we're talking about, where she's more affiliated, you know, with she has the super serum. I know you're not going to like this, but you know they're saying the retconning is that she got some version of the super soldier serum, probably not the full blast that we have in Captain America, but something that allows her to hold her own. Because if you see the comics in the past, she doesn't. The reason she's all the way in the back is because she has the least amount of power, right?
Well, yeah,
The whole idea of giving her the super soldier serum wasn't so much so she could be on the team, because Hawkeye doesn't have it and he's just shooting arrows at the end of the day. The idea was that because they couldn't explain why she was so old and yet looked so young, because they were dating her all the way back to World War II. And then they were having these stories with her hanging out with Cap and Wolverine. So eventually they were like, look, she should be like about what, 98 years old, and she looks like she's in her early 30s at best. So super soldier serum.
But then that's also one of the things they started introducing the Yelena Belova character, to have her come and try and take over I guess they wanted to bring a younger character, someone with a different take from the Russian, from the Red Room. But I've seen a number of the comics, and it's like some of them she's just been absolutely cruel to the poor girl, trying to prevent her from doing this business, getting into the spying business, because she doesn't want her to do it, But it's pretty interesting. I think that this is a character who's been underused, because of her. I guess she doesn't have the same power level that many of the others have. But in terms of skill, in terms of tactical abilities, I mean, she's got to be on par with our boy Cap, right? She's been around.
better than Cap.
No,
Depending
no,
on who writes it, that's what she is.
no. Okay. That's the nonsense that you always have to go through. It's like, well, she's on a par with Cap. Why is she on a par with Cap? Let her do her own thing. She's a spy. Cap's not a spy, even though he has done missions for S.H.I.E.L.D. that pretty much put him in almost in the same vein. No, she was doing something totally different than what Cap was doing. So to put on, they're on two different tracks at the end of the day. And then it's almost like you got to legitimize her by trying to put her up to, the Cap's thing. Cap does his own thing. She does her own thing. It's two totally different things.
They're on the same team, though, bro. It's like they say, hey, you know what? You just do the spying stuff. You're fighting. When you see her in the comics, she's also fighting some of these guys too, some of the villains. So
that's like they're saying something deficient with her, where we got to somehow, like the yardstick is Cap, so we got to use him to measure out her. Like, no, just judge her by the stuff that she does. Cap has nothing to do with her.
Well, I think that's the thing. They had this scene in one of the it was a backup of one of the Spider-Man issues where she's trying to figure out his spider sense. So she did something where she like shot in two areas to kind of understand it without doing a thing where she went toe to toe to him to figure it out. And it's like, oh, you fought like this and I figured this out. She kind of did it from a distance, saying, this is how I would deal with Spider-Man, not toe to toe, which was like, wow, I couldn't believe it happened. I thought it was going to be, hey, I've got these. I mean, they've had other characters who had like, well, I mean, Iron Fist was he was with the living weapon at one point. So that kind of gave you the reason why he'd be able to, give Spider-Man a hard time. But with Natasha, she never had that much in comparison. She shouldn't be anywhere near Iron Fist either. But it was interesting that she did something from long range just to figure it out, not to defeat him, but just let me figure this out. And to taking this information, we don't know what she's going to do with it, but it was just interesting to see that rather than just what Marvel does. It's like, we're going to do a story where, it would be cool if she could beat Spider-Man. When we already saw them, did the classic Marvel style that Stanley and Romita did, where Spider-Man doesn't necessarily lose, but she kind of ties him up a couple of times. And then in the end, it looks like he could overtake the win and she kind of gets out of there. So
those are the old days when not everybody had to beat everybody up in a fight. You could actually outsmart someone, or, hey, you know what, I can't make this guy, in terms of raw power, but, I'll do this and I'll find a way to get at him that way. When they used to do those things, then they said, yeah, the hell with it. Let's just give everybody super soldier serum so they can all fight.
You guys just hate that super soldier serum, I see.
It's overused. The Power Broker didn't even use that. He used his own thing.
Everybody seems to forget the Vita rays. Nobody else seems to need the Vita rays except for Cap. That's why they all go crazy.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
There's other things they could do rather than just use that. And the movies have been since the Hulk, kind of like, hey, can we give that super soldier serum to someone else?
Let's get that juice, baby. Let's get that juice. It's like when they blew up that car full of what do you call that, flag smashers. I'm surprised no one came out there and started vacuuming all that blood.
Good grief, man.
To get that juice, bro. I'm surprised it hasn't been.
Yeah, someone took it on the floor. We've
No,
extracted it.
it's super valuable, man. What are you talking about?
That's an idea.
That's
You know?
no, that's like Shang-Chi's the last issue of Shang-Chi Master of Kung Fu when he's meeting up with Fu Manchu, and Fu Manchu needs something. He has like this serum that keeps him young, and Shang-Chi has it in a vial of like blood or something. And he's like, "Give me the blood." He's like, "Well, if you want it, you're gonna have to lick it up off the floor." And he spills it on the floor. And Fu Manchu drops to the floor and starts literally sucking the floor. Be like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm gonna live forever." That's what you want to do. That's what you're gonna have these guys over here like Fu Manchu sucking up the floor to get the blood out of these dudes.
The character is now called the Mandarin. Okay.
Huh?
The character is now called the Mandarin.
No, the Mandarin is called the Mandarin. They are too chicken to use Fu Manchu.
Okay, we will go past that. PD, exit.
Well, I'm sorry. We're not. It's not in the budget to be Xing stuff out. But I just want to end my portion of this thing and show this issue that I didn't bring up earlier, which is this is Avengers 63.
That costume.
36, sorry, my mistake. But if you look at this issue, this is one of the first issues where she's on the cover. She's literally on the cover. She's not in the corner box, she's on the cover. And she has a moment later in the issue where she like, they bring him up. He's like, nope, she's staying with us. She's hanging out with us. You know, Hank is like, no way. They get into an argument. But we have a moment late in the issue where Cap and Natasha are together. And this reminded me of the Cap movie, but at the same time, Cap is a little more up to speed in this one. And she's kind of fish out of the water. So it was fun to see this issue where it's very different from the movie, where the movie, you know, she's the one that knows everything. She don't even have an accent no more. And she's trying to get Cap to learn to kind of cool, you know, relax a little. Go talk to that girl. Hey, kiss me for a second. All right, I was just doing that for the plan. But you got them working together. Some cool art by Don Heck. And but yeah, just want to bring that's my last point.
Well, I mean, one of the great things is that they've been able to take a legacy character and mold her into something new and something better.
Legacy? What's her legacy character? What do you mean she's a legacy character?
Yeah, what do you mean?
She's an old character that they brought up, and they.
That's old, not legacy.
That's yeah.
I didn't use old. I think that's a little insulting, you know. To
legacy character with comics. I'm not trying to give you a hard time, but legacy character with comics usually mean that this is a name and a mantle that's been passed on to somebody else. So
that's right.
You would have like the Flash, and the Flash, it was Barry Allen, passes it to Wally West. Wally West passes it to Bart Allen, so on and so forth. Black Widow, if you want, the only legacy the Black Widow has would be the Red Room, and that's a retcon.
And Yelena Belova. But I'm saying, just getting back, is that they've had that character for a while, and how she's progressed. Her character has progressed in the things that she was doing, the character development, as well as the powers that she's attained. And that's good. I mean, this is one thing we've always talked about, where we're saying characters, there are many characters within the Marvel and DC universe, that if they went back there and started mining some of that stuff, it'll make you can use these stories, it'll be a big deal. You know, it would be a really good thing, as opposed to just come up with another guy who has the ability to shoot fire, and then another guy comes up, another guy who has the ability to shoot fire through his toes, another guy has the ability to shoot fire through his eyes, you know.
Go back to that Marvel fanfare. There's like at least 4 or 5 villains they created in that thing, so she would have a whole set of villains of her own. Like that sort of thing back in the day, where you're not going to own this. It's like, here, she needs some villains. And they gave her a whole bunch of them to fight. So,
yeah, I did.
No, I mean, one of the reasons, because people look back on it and say, well, why didn't she ever carry a title? Because for the longest time, she was a supporting character. She was never built up to be a leading character. You knew who the leads were. I mean, it's the same thing. You could look at somebody like Hank Pym. Hank Pym was a supporting character on the Avengers. Even though the Avengers is a team, you had your lead characters, you had your supporting characters, and your supporting characters did what? They provided support. The moment they became a lead, they're no good as a supporting character. So you got to get some new supports in here, and you got to farm these guys out to their own books. So it's a longer process, but again, for the longest time, she's a supporting character. She's on the Champions, you know, she's lead, but again, this is a whole bunch of supporting characters on that particular team. She's with Daredevil, you know, supporting character. She gets some more light here and there. and then finally gets to the point like, hey, you know what? We can just use her as a, let's just use her as the lead, and you go from there. But it's a, it's a process at the end of the day, but a very nice process if you get to, as PD is showing us, if you get to follow it over the years.
Yep, I agree.
And if people buying books and they wait till that movie comes out to buy that Tales of Suspense with the Black Widow, y'all are just nuts because y'all been hearing about this thing for umpteen years, and they're like, we gotta wait till it actually comes out. Now we can sell it. It's hot off the press now. It should be sitting there in the back of your. You
should have been here for the Comic Book Hero show when I did that one. That's pretty much where these guys are at. It's like, you have these key books, like, okay, it's just sitting there, and nobody wants it. All of a sudden, it's in a movie. Oh, I want it now, and I'm going to pay triple the price. Like, you're crazy. You're nuts. It's a good book now. It's a good book now. If you want to go get it now. That's a great time.
Yep, that is. But hey, this was a pretty good topic. I'm glad we brought it up to give some history and some knowledge of what's going on with Black Widow, particularly in the comics. So hey, guys, anything else to close us out?
I'm done.
All right. So hey, once again, I have to say comment, subscribe, give us a thumbs up. Spin a rack.
Out.
Out.